Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Councilor Boland?
Here.
Councilor Elliott?
Here.
Councilor Fisher?
Here.
Councilor Grizzle? Here. And Councilor Reeskamp?
Here.
Okay, first up we have the consent calendar. We have today's agenda, which we are removing the executive session from the end. We won't be having that today. And that's the only change that I have. Were there any other changes or corrections that you saw?
I've moved for approval. Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amended consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, consent calendar passes. Public comments, we have an opportunity. The council welcomes all respectful comments regarding the city's business. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, stating their name and address for the record. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city clerk will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into the regular session. The candidate interviews for deliberation for Ward 1 council vacancy. Just talking about the process we're going to do. We're going to interview each candidate. You'll all go back to the lobby that we have in the back here, kind of with the train nostalgia, and we'll call in each one for the interview, and then you'll go back and wait, and then at the end we'll deliberate, and then we should make a decision by the end of the day. So that's the process. We're looking at about 30 minutes for each candidate to answer questions. We have questions here, and at that, I guess we can have that. Let's have all candidates go back to start with.
Okay. Before Robert is starting off. So
Yeah, Robert can be here. That's fine. Yep.
Robert can go ahead.
Councilors, while they're doing that, in your packets, one, there's this sheet here, which is just basically all of the questions, so you can see them at a quick glance. And then Linda has provided this nice package of information so that we can take each candidate with each question and have room to write down your comments, and also rate from 1 to 5, 5 being high. And then at the end, we will then use the sheet that's at the back, and we will actually do the rankings, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the deliberation at the end. But I think this is set up good. What I'd like to do, see how you guys would like to proceed, if we would like to specifically each one of us ask the same question, or would we like to just kind of go free form and ask questions as each of you feel? I know in the city manager interviews we did that where each of us had a question and went pretty well.
I'd like to stick to the script and make sure everyone gets the exact same questions.
No, I meant as far, we are going to ask all the same questions, but as far as
like you ask this
who
one
asked
and,
questions from each of the counselors.
I don't have a preference.
I don't either. You can ask
You can
them
ask
all
them
as
all.
far as...
I'm not asking them all. That's
Oh, that was not
oh, that's not my job. It's your job.
Come on, we gotta make this a
Seriously.
All right.
Seriously. Okay, why don't we just...
Start, go around, and everybody will have the same question.
Okay,
Go around.
that sounds good. And I'll do the introductory and for each person. Our first person up is Robert Furlow, candidate for Council Ward 1. And would you like to give us a little introduction, who you are?
Sure, thank you. My name is Robert Furlow. We've lived in Lebanon since, I think, 2006 is when we bought our home in the area. My wife grew up here. I married the oldest daughter of Charles and Adeline Filer. They live on the corner of 7th and Wassam, and they bought their home, I think, back in 1950. So I did my undergraduate work over in Corvallis and worked for the Gibbs brothers. One of the Gibbs brothers had a furniture store here, and the other one had a store in Corvallis. And so I got familiar with the area, 45 years ago, long before I met Cheryl. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. I've traveled extensively around the United States. Been involved in hospitals and health departments and healthcare for 42 years. Worked for the feds, worked for the National Association of Counties. I worked for every form of government except a city. And this, after some encouragement from my mother-in-law and my wife, I think they were trying to get me out of the house. But anyway, it provided a nice opportunity. We plan to make this our retirement home, and I've been involved in community service throughout my career, and look forward to the opportunity to serve here in Lebanon.
Good, thank you. Did you have anything else, or? Okay. Okay, you want to start, Floyd, with the first question?
What do you perceive to be the 3 most important concerns facing Lebanon?
I think with every form of government, the 2 major things that come to mind, and I'll see if I can place a third one as we talk. The first one is communication with the constituents, with the staff of the organization, trying to match the needs of the community with the goals of the elected officials, trying to balance what folks would want to do and what they would like to do and what needs to be done. And sometimes in a government setting, there's a desire to do something that sometimes is not possible because of statute or because of charters. And I think it takes a great deal of communication between the elected officials, the staff, and the community members to work out those fine points, to identify how they reach the best compromise in the best way. Every community is made up of a complex set of individuals, communities within communities, and trying to address those different priorities and those different desires is a continual struggle. And if you don't communicate, if you don't use the means available to get community input and to establish goals commonly and to dialogue together, then you're going to end up with friction. And that leads to a lot of diversion. You lose focus. You waste a lot of time and a lot of money sometimes. I think the second priority, second need that I would suggest Lebanon would have in observing this community over the past few years, and in my experience, is revenue. Trying to establish a firm revenue foundation to meet the needs of a growing community. I grew up in Klamath Falls. This community is a lot like Klamath Falls was when I was growing up. A lot of potential in the community, a lot of different interests, and on the edge of some tremendous growth. To assure that, you've got to identify what are the revenue opportunities, and to match the revenue opportunities with what the community members are interested in doing, whether it's a fee-based situation where the parties that are participating in a particular adventure pay the full fee cost associated with that, and that becomes a revenue source, or whether there are more general broad-based taxation efforts that are spread across all the community members and then those are identified. So consistent with that, then I think probably the third concern and opportunity is to live within a defined budget, to ensure that once you've identified what your priorities are, you look at your revenue stream, then you can establish a budget plan and live within that. Every governmental entity is bound by the tax laws and by the budget laws. And everyone needs to understand what those are. We've got city staff and department heads that are available to assist that, but it's going to be the council and the mayor's obligation to ensure ultimately that those obligations are met and that the statutes are adhered to.
Very good. Thank you. Number 2, Bob, would you like to?
The next one, okay. This is a two-part question, Bob. What areas of Lebanon do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization? And what do you think would be an appropriate approach for the city?
As I've driven around the community, and in particular around Ward 1, there's a great deal of mixture here in this community between, I'll use the word urban, and that's probably a loose definition of it, but the more defined parts of the city versus the boundary and the rural parts of the area. I think in order to meet the greatest objective of our community, we must try to spread that development uniformly throughout the community. We've got a lot of growth potential with the medical community in the area, some light industry, and trying to look at industry and to look at livability of the community, I think is the biggest challenge. Do we add sidewalks and curbs and gutters everywhere within the city limits? Is that a goal? I'm not sure. I think it would be appropriate to engage in a dialogue with the citizens, particularly within each of those areas that are maybe on that growth area, to find out where they would like to see that happen. I would also like to take an opportunity to look at the various departments to see what they thought some of the infrastructure needs would be, what some of the problems that they would be having in meeting some of the maintenance requirements. Should we enhance some of our neighborhoods through parks? How do we address the vandalism out of the River Fork Park area? Is there some development that could be done in that area that would minimize some of that vandalism? So I think by talking with the police chief here, he could identify those areas that tend to draw a little bit more concern, and where his officers need to spend more time. That could give us some focus as to where some of that redevelopment efforts might happen and might enhance the livability and could cut crime rates and could make the community safer.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, Jason.
As a city councilor, you sometimes have to make unpopular decisions. How will you handle those who criticize you or a decision you've made?
I remember when I was commissioned an officer, they said I was made a gentleman by an act of Congress. That did not necessarily mean that everything was going to be popular in the decisions that you were going to make. One of the things I learned early in my career was the importance of being honest with the people that you're having to deal with, and let them have the information that you have, and why you made the decision that you did. And a leader must be out in front. A leader must work with that decision and move forward on it. If this council were to make a decision, there's a time and a place for dissent. But once a decision is made, then the organization, in order to preserve itself, has got to move forward together. And we've got to speak as one voice. And we've got to work in common together. I have on occasion had to make some very unpopular decisions in the organization. In the past 42 years of government, as many of you know, there have been a lot of ups and downs. And I've cut organizations by as much as 25% in a given year. I've cut millions and millions of dollars. I've laid off hundreds of staff. I've also gone through amazing growth periods where we had to add hundreds of people and millions of dollars to the organization. Each of those situations comes with competing demands and requires a great deal of information, and there's a saying that I made a part of my management style. It's by a 6th century Chinese poet by the name of Tong Sung. It says, of a leader it will be said, when he is gone, we did it ourselves. If a leader doesn't have the people with him, if the people don't understand why the decisions are made, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to grow the organization, and you're not going to sustain it.
Okay. And number 4, Rebecca.
What do you see as the key elements in a productive relationship between the mayor, the city manager, and the city council members?
Obviously, the formal meetings are merely the legal accomplishment of the tasks that take a great deal of effort to work with. I'm not familiar with the Oregon law or the city charter, but I know with my experience working with county commissioners over a number of years is that it was difficult to get 2 of them in the same room together. I don't know if that difficulty exists within the city scenario, but I would need to become a student of that to find out what are the legal requirements in order to establish good working communication and make sure we don't violate anything. I think we have a city charter that guides us. The mayor, the city manager are obviously going to do a great deal to drive the agenda. The councilors, I think, by the communication that they're getting from their constituents, are going to provide some feedback for that. We have goals. We have a city plan. to work with. And each of those things gives us opportunities to call up an agenda. There's very little new in government that I've experienced over 42 years. There are repetitive things that have got to happen year after year after year. You know, you got to have a budget. You've got to do your personnel reviews. You've got to do your maintenance issues, and you've got to do the training, you know, and there's a whole list of things. So I think it takes a matter of looking and communicating and establishing some priorities as to when are we going to accomplish those things? How best are we going to do that? Are we going to do that within departments, and is the city council going to review minutes of a particular session? Are councilors going to sit in on a particular departmental meeting once or twice a year to meet with the employees to see how things are going? Are there open staff meetings that the city manager and the mayor have, and do the councilors routinely participate in those things? I mean, there's a whole host of ways to accomplish that, and I would take some counsel as to what you folks have seen work the best, and where those communication problems might need to be addressed. You've got a new police chief. He's obviously wanting to make sure things are working well in that. He's been in your position about a year now, right? And, you know, so he's looking for some feedback as to how that's going. I'm sure he's communicating with his officers. I'm sure that information is being shared with the mayor and with the city council in public meetings, and the city manager is probably meeting with him on a regular basis to see how all that's going on. So we've got both public and departmental meetings and staff meetings that we can use to accomplish that business.
Okay, thank you. Number 5.
If selected, what would be your top 3 priorities as a city councilor be?
I think my number 1 priority would be to learn the job. I would be naive to tell you that I know everything there is to know about Lebanon, or everything there is to know about city government. And I'd like to figure that out first. And I think that takes some time. And I would hope to be schooled. I'd want to talk to the other councilors and to the mayor and to the city managers and some of the department heads, is to find out what they thought ought to happen. The second thing is, I think it's necessary to establish some sort of a communication. I would want to, particularly to have a conversation with you as the other councilor from Ward 1, is to find out where you're heading, what you have heard from the constituents as to what are the needs and what's going on in the neighborhood, and try to figure out how best to balance Ward 1's needs in concert with the whole city's needs. And third, I think it's important to establish parity with the long-term goals that the community has. Are those consistent with what I thought after I had learned my job and done some communicating with people? Did I feel that I could provide some input and some suggestions as to further refinements or new enhancements within the community?
Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Do you have any additional comments or questions for the council? How
how do you folks feel this city is going? Is the ship floating in the right direction, or are there major shoals
You're in
out
for a
there you're
heck of a
running into?
ride.
I could
Having
start.
been around a many years, I think the ship has righted itself, and we're pulling, and the wind's blowing in the right direction. We have obviously always have budgetary issues that we struggle with as a council and as a community, and as staff deals with that, sometimes it's not pleasant. As you know, we've just had cuts, and those are
Those are troublesome.
troublesome.
Those are people
They are.
associated with every one of those cuts.
That's a difficult thing that we as elected officials face, and you would be a part of that at some point if selected. But I think we as a city are headed very strongly in a very positive direction.
And I would add to that I think we have a good council in that we communicate well with each other and disagree well with each other. So we could disagree. Floyd's always wrong. And yet I can vote no and he can vote yes. And the next agenda item is fresh. It's not a.
Oil opposition, is that over here?
He didn't know he was always wrong until just now.
Well, I just
But-
sleep through it.
But I would not see that compromised with whoever comes on. It's completely, I appreciate somebody coming from another perspective, but we communicate well and move on. This group does, so I think that.
I agree. I think that we're, as Wayne said, we're in the right direction. I think that the council, it's a fantastic group to work with. Everybody's very, very easy to work with. And if we do disagree, it's here at the meeting, it's done, and then we move on to the next thing, and it's fresh. So that's real positive. The other part of the job, and I'm sure most of the councilors agree, is sometimes it's pretty thankless. And I'm not trying to look for sympathy, but it just, sometimes you do a lot of work, and you just kind of get kind of yelled at for different things. So that's the hard part sometimes. So, but we really appreciate your taking the time to come here today and stepping up, because it's a big job and it's an important job, and
It is.
we need that in the community. And I really appreciate your experience and your background, and again, taking time to come to us.
Well, I made a commitment to myself a number of years ago that I was going to spend my career in public service. The military was a great place to learn to work within large systems. I was promoted ahead of my contemporaries a couple of times. I was given the opportunity to go to graduate school when I was in the military on their dime, and I knew the day would come when I would be out, and that I wanted to be able to continue to serve. I remember a two-star medical corps officer answering a question one time. There was a big debate going on at the time about whether medical service corps officers or medical corps officers were going to command hospitals in the Army. And he was a doc, and he was pretty passionate about his answer that only doctors were going to command hospitals. He said, but what we want you folks to do, and he was addressing a bunch of medical service corps officers, he said, by the time you get to be lieutenant colonels, we want you to be, and he used the military term, branch and material qualified, meaning that each of you would have your own specialty, but that you would have general skills, management skills, contracting skills, personnel skills, management skills that would be able to allow the military to put you wherever it needed to put you. I provide myself and I offer my experience. There are other people as I've seen in the paper, that have more direct budgetary experience with Lebanon. But my experience with Rotary, with United Way, with the Chamber of Commerce, with various volunteer organizations that I've chaired and been board members of in the communities where I've served, have opened my eyes to the needs of communities like this. And I would like to be able to serve if I can.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Good luck in your deliberations.
Thanks.
A lot of fine candidates to choose from.
You want a few minutes too for the next one? or-
Yep, we could just have a couple minutes, I think. In a couple minutes, if you want to go on the top right, and if you want to rate each section, that might help you at the end on the rating, if you haven't already done that. Is the council all okay with asking the questions the way we did? Does that work okay?
Yeah. There's no box for it, but we are putting a rating for number 7, which is the
Yeah,
overall.
yeah, the overall,
Number
sure.
of that.
Can't be.
What'd you say about 7, Jason?
Oh, sorry about that.
There's not a box
Yeah,
there.
there's no box, but we need to assign a rank score to numbers, the final question, the overall rating.
Well, the box is down at the bottom for the total score.
Yeah.
Right, but you need to make sure you include.
Box right there.
Right.
So you got to write a score there. Way to go, Linda.
No box, what are we supposed to do?
Are we ready?
Oh, there you go.
Ready for the next candidate? It was just at about 24, 25 minutes, I think it was. That was pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and have the next candidate.
It's like 10 degrees in here.
That's great. Alert.
No. I used to be.
Put your coat on.
I'm not going to put it on. It's stupid.
I didn't score very high.
Do I need to sign that?
Hi, Dean. Would you like to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about you and do a little introduction?
No, this, but you got to do your work.
There's no opening statement? All righty. Okay, the first question, I'll start on the other end with Wayne this time.
Question number 1. What do you perceive to be the 3 most important concerns facing Lebanon?
Number 1 is the water plant. Number 2 is the canal. And the development of the west side of town where the old racetrack was at. Can't seem to get past the state on that.
You want to elaborate a little bit on each one of those, Dean?
Well, the water plant, of course, we know we need that because of what we have has become outdated. It's very old. Costs a lot of money to keep it up. And a new water plant would certainly solve a lot of the problems that are facing as far as water supply and future water supply that's going to be needed. As far as the canal, I understand there's some negotiations going on, and Lebanon, when Lebanon took over the water system, the big mistake made was not acquiring the canal at that time, and it may not be able to acquire it. But I understand that if the right negotiations are made, that we'll have no problem with future water supply. But if we don't, it's going to be very expensive. And you look at what the city of Albany is trying to stick Lebanon with now, and if you look at the amount of cost involved, I don't think the city of Lebanon can really afford it. Period. Now, as far as the zoned and industrial property, I refer to the old racetrack, which is it's on the north side of Oak Street. That has, at one time, in fact, there's more than one time, there's been several different industries that looked at that site out there to build and develop industrial property. The state of Oregon, of course, has got it totally referred to as wetlands. You go out there in the wintertime now, there's no water standing on that property, even in wintertime, because it drains off. But there's been a lot of money spent out there by other property owners on the south side of Oak Street to get their property approved finally from the Division of State Lands on concerning wetlands. And there's no wetlands out there, as far as most people can see. Of course, the Corps of Engineers consider the whole Willamette Valley to be wetlands, which is, you know, at right time, there's a lot of water that comes down. That still, if that property can be approved by the state of Oregon, we should have, there's additional industries that want to come to town. We know that.
Should you be selected, Dean, and as a city council and as a team with staff, how do we change that?
How do we change that? Be persistent and push and push and push. If you look at the site where Lowe's is at today, had that not been annexed and zoned properly when that property was first sold, Lowe's would not be there today. It'd be a farm ground. But that was done 30-some years ago. It took that long, how many years it took to develop it. And I can't give you the dates, but I was involved on the first contact on that property out there in 1976. I happened to know the property owner, and one day I was on the planning commission at that time, and also the chairman of the development committee for the chamber. And we had a publisher at the Lebanon Express by the name of Pat Patterson. Pat called me one day and he said, Dean, he says, I had a call from Portland. We have a company that wants 240 acres of land. What do we have? And I said, well, Pat, I said, the only place I know of is north of the railroad track, north of Lynn Gear. So I did a little checking around, and then the people, one family that owned 90 acres out there was the people that owned the Stanton Slaughterhouse, Nichols, out there, and I went out and talked to them. Yep, it's for sale. So I came back to town and talked to Jerry Baker, who was a real estate agent. He went out and talked to Nichols, talked to the neighbors. He had 243 acres listed within a week. Tektronix bought it. It was annexed and zoned properly. Today, that would never happen, could not happen because of the state of Oregon.
Thank you.
It takes a lot of years for it to develop.
question number 2, Rebecca.
What areas of Lebanon do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization? And what do you think is an appropriate approach for the city for that development and revitalization?
What was the first part of that question?
It is a little convoluted. What areas of Lebanon do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization?
For redevelopment?
Redevelopment or development?
Development?
Revitalization.
Residential, of course, south of town is, right now, to me, is the only place that you really can develop a residential. You got areas off of Crowfoot. You got areas to the southwest of Stoltz Hill Drive. The west, actually, it's south of Oak Creek. That's an area that's for residential. As far as redevelopment or a discontinued development like industrial, is that what you mean, or?
I think you could think of it as maybe a downtown revitalization. You could think of it as, whatever your ideas of are within the city of Lebanon, whether it's development, redevelopment, revitalization, and particularly, I guess, my thought on that question is, what can we do about it? What is within our power, and what should our approach be to those ideas?
Okay, you do have one area that's in close to town, just south of Russell Drive, between Russell Drive and go down to where Walgren is at, and east of the Highway 20, near to the railroad track. That is an area that has been a blight since I remember as a kid. I grew up on the north end of Porter Street. And I remember in wintertime, we had a friend down there, and he waited in water to get to the house. That area there, it's come and gone. There's been areas that have been, had to take houses out because of failing sewerage, and everybody has well water. There's septic tanks short distance from the wells. This is an area that should be and should have been a long time ago. In fact, in about 1980, Jim Nicolai was city manager, or he was not city manager, he was the head of the planning commission, or whatever they call him, any city planner. And the city, there was grant money available to fully develop that with sewage, water, and so forth. 52% of the people were above poverty, so it was turned down. And there's not been much of an effort since then to ever have anything done. But that's one area that really, really needs to be done.
And what is our role in?
Well, what can your role be is to, keep pushing the county and the state for condemnation. That could be done. There's places down there that should not be nobody should be living in them. When they have catwalks out to the back house because the water's too deep in the yard, that's bad. But there's some real blight down in there. Yeah. Center Street, into Russell Street. But the city can push the county, can push the state for condemnation. I can see that happening.
Okay. Jason?
Dean, as a city councilor, you sometimes have to make unpopular decisions. How will you handle those who criticize you or a decision you've made?
Well, I could go back to when I spent 7 months on the council. I was appointed a space, similar to this situation here, but I was in the retail business. It was 1982. The recession hit, but I had people come in my store giving me hell for something that happened 15 years prior. Well, when the 7-month period was up, I didn't renew my interest at all. But depending on what it is, most things can be negotiated, can be talked to. One thing about I've always had somewhat of a laid-back approach to things, that you talk to people and try to work things out. situations make the difference on what, on how things are handled.
So how would you handle, you're down at Safeway and you've made a decision on city council and kind of an unpopular decision, and how would you handle somebody confronting you in Safeway? Or
Well,
whatever
first thing
story.
I would probably ask them to go outside and we'll talk about it. I would not try to use somebody's, if I was in the store, I would not, hey, listen, if we need to talk about something, go outside. First, number one. I would not confront them inside the store. Because first thing, you're on private property. Depends on the situation, if it's something that needs to be confronted with some officer to show up or something like that, there's things that can happen, I'm sure.
Okay. Bob, number 4.
What do you see as key elements in a productive relationship between the mayor, city manager, and the council?
Well, in recent years, I've seen a tremendous amount of improvement. We go back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, some of the councilmen we have had seem to be, I don't know, how do you describe it in words?
I have some words you can borrow.
You probably got the same ones I'm thinking, but I don't dare say them. Communication between people is probably one of the most important things. You communicate. And you most generally think, and people can sit down and work out any problems and work on the solutions, and you take that approach. I'm not one to fly off the handle and backstab somebody. I just don't, I never have done that. I was in retail business of my own for 36 years, and I do not ever know of anybody trying to sue me for bad language, for anything, I've always been able to work things out, but you don't approach it with flying off the handle type situation. And one time I had a guy come in, his wife had ordered something from my business. He didn't like it. He came in, he actually assaulted me. By the time we left, he understood, and we worked things out. But most generally you can work by proper communication and an approach you take to people.
Okay. If selected, what would be your top 3 priorities as a city councilor?
Well, first off, learn a little bit more about our city charters and things like that type of thing. There's a lot of things that that we're doing that I don't totally, I'm not totally familiar with, but I do keep up on a lot of stuff because some of my friends are involved in council, have been, mayor, and also the past city administrator. And if you repeat that question again for me.
If selected, what would your top 3 priorities be as a city councilor?
Well, like I say, first thing I do is learning education about everything that's going on with the city, that a lot of things I know about already and not familiar with all the details. I want to be involved in it. I really want to, I'm not sure where, at what level, it would be committees or whatever. I like what I see as far as what has happened with the council. In January it wasn't very bright, but there's some things went on first of the year that kind of disappointing, but to me it looks very bright. For our future, what's people working together, it appeared to be that they're very, very harmonious, and I would hope to blend right in with that.
Did you have a third one? Third priority?
Pardon?
Did you have a third priority? That was 2?
Well, I don't know if there's anything right at this moment, any goals that I have set that I would want to, probably the one thing, maybe 2 things that I was very disappointed in is when position of a so-called assistant administrator was eliminated. That troubled me because I don't know of any time that there was ever established an assistant administrator. And here was an individual, the position was eliminated, and the person received quite a lot of severance pay, and still is receiving. I'm troubled by that. First off, everybody that works for the city of Lebanon would read to me as an assistant to the administrator, not a title of an assistant administrator. That I would never want to see that happen. Because to me, all the employees and the councilor are all assistant to the administrator. They're supplying advice to him through mayor or through council or whatever. And then that would probably be my third item, that the question that was asked.
Do you have any additional questions or comments for council?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time and your willingness to serve and to be here and put your hat in the ring, because it's not always an easy job.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Thank
then
you.
what I have to do, I'll have to get a little bit more ambitious on learning proper computer work.
We can always help you on that.
Wonder about the shoes under the desk.
Isn't this fun?
What's that?
Isn't this fun?
Are you ready for Ralph?
I am.
Ralph, we're ready anytime you are. Good time.
Welcome, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph. Well, good afternoon.
Would you like to go ahead and give a little opening statement and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Please appoint me. All right. Let's see. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ralph Gaston, for anyone who doesn't remember me. I've been a Lebanon resident for 13 years now, I reckon. And if you've read my little application there, you know I've been involved with the community for a while, and I'm looking forward to deepening and widening that involvement. So Okay, I'm here. So if you have any questions,
All right.
feel free.
Floyd, would you like to start out?
Me?
Yep, number one.
What do you perceive to be the three most important concerns facing Lebanon?
Wow. Three most important concerns facing Lebanon. Number one is crime or public safety, same boat. I read the paper every week, and my neighbors do, and we see an expanding listing of events, police activity. I think we have a good police force. I just personally think we need more of them, and I think my neighbors and your neighbors agree. Second to that, I think, is a perception within the city of lack of communication from the city, in particular council activities and the decisions being made. And along with that is a perception that the city doesn't care whether or not the citizens know what's going on. I believe that issue is being worked on very well and very energetically. I'm trying to think of the right word, particularly in the last year or two, as we've really done a good job of communicating better and more often, opening things up. I think that's an area we really need to work on as well. A third area is, I hate to pick something so small, but it's actually our water rates. And to me, that's the tip of the spear, because that's kind of like the symptom. Is the fact is we have a canal and a river here, and people look at it and say, why are we paying so much? And we can explain till we're blue in the face. But I still see that, and I hear from my fellow citizens that they're very concerned that we just keep increasing the water rates, sewer rates, and all that, and we're not really justifying it. We're not improving the service, and they can't quite understand why Lebanon would be the highest. But I think it ties into the broader picture of our infrastructure. We really need to look at building it up, bettering it, not looking 5 years down the road, but rather 20 to 25 years, and really be prepared to answer for why things aren't the way they should be. I think our water system is a place where we've failed our citizens. I hate to use such strong words, especially since you guys are going to vote in a little while when I get to join you, but it's an area that I'd love to help you tackle. That's an area we need to look at. Is our water system leaves a lot to be desired, including our wastewater treatment, our sewer lines, and our stormwater runoff. I think there are a significant number of people out there that just don't understand all that's involved with water in the city. Not just the clean water we drink, but the water that runs off our lands. I know that, like, for example, in the Russell Drive area, there are streets that are still flooding because they don't have the sewer connects proper, and every time it rains, it floods, okay? And I know I spoke at the council, I guess it's been about 8 years now, about that very issue. And I don't live in that area, by the way. I live over by the high school. So fortunately, I don't have a problem with flooding in my yard. My street gets pretty wet sometimes, but I drive through the city, and when it's wet, and I'm just kind of amazed that we have streets that are rivers. We don't have proper drainage throughout our city. We have streets that aren't paved. So, and to me, it just surprised me when I moved here 14 years ago that, for instance, 10th Street was about 12 years ago that they finally paved this section up here. Same with 10th and 12th. And so to me, they were like, hey, these are major streets. Why aren't they paved? And somebody explained to me all the rules why. But to me, it still baffles my mind, and I'm sure the majority of the citizens think the same way. We're a city now. We got 15,000 plus people living here. We ought not have country roads in the city. So that's probably wide ranging, but those are the three things that I see as most needing of our attention.
Ralph, what do you tell the citizens that ask you why the water rates are going up? What is your answer to them?
What do I tell them about the rates going up? Boy, that's a question with two sides of that sword. The first thing is we got to replace that water treatment plant. I mean, it's old. It's older than me. It's older than my dad, if he was around. But we have to make certain changes. We have to upgrade the systems. Part of it's simply because of the law. I know we've had some waivers from the feds and the states about our treatment water, and we're doing a great job. We've done that, but our system is outdated, outmoded, and just flat out old. So that's the major one. And honestly,
Would you say that in regulations from federal and state drive most of that?
that's what I tell them. I says that we have a significant regulatory burden, that, yes, they have these regulations there. And even if our system wasn't as old as it is, if it didn't meet those, we'd still have to change. So we're at a point where we cannot delay. But we also have an old system that's falling apart. It's going to get more and more expensive to continue it. So you combine those two, and we got to do it now. But honestly, I also tell them, councils in the past should have foreseen this. It was a failure of the councils back in the 70s and 80s to say, hey, our plant is already at that time 20 years old. We need to plan for it. If we put away 10 or 20 or 30 or 50,000 a year, 20 years later, we'd have a good chunk of money, and we wouldn't have to, the rates wouldn't have to be so much. So that's what I was talking about. We need to be proactive more than just the 5 or 10 years. We need to look, hey, when we buy a major piece of the infrastructure, whether it's a plant or a sewer line or a street, when's it going to need to be replaced? Nothing lasts forever, except taxes. But I mean, so that's what it is. It's regulatory, it's age, and it's, hey, we didn't do it 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And
Thanks, Rob.
you bet.
Okay, number 3, Bob?
3,
I'm sorry, 2.
number 2. What areas of Lebanon do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization? And then there's a second part of this. What do you think would be an appropriate approach for the city?
Wow. Areas that I'd like to see revitalized, renovated, improved are the area I just mentioned before, the Russell Drive, and the area, I always say south, I guess some people call it east towards Sweet Home. So if you have to go that way, that area to me has just been neglected, and I know there was a big apartment complex was going to go in, and I'm not sure if that's the one that got canceled, but there was a big debate. That area needs to be improved. That was when I was just referring to the fact that it floods all the time and it's not just water. It needs to be improved. The parts that I think the government should, as in the city, should take ownership of are the sewer lines. Absolutely. They should have proper sewer lines from every house to the street, to our system. I recognize that we're talking about private property, and some people there can't afford it. We need to help them do it, and if they can't, we need to do it. I'm not much one for government invention on private properties, but let's face it, if their sewer floods onto the street and it floods into the neighbor's yard, into the schools, it's now a public problem. We've got to take care of that in that area in particular. So that whole sector from Russell Drive along from Highway 20, that section, that needs to be helped. Another area that is a little closer to town is North 5th Street and North Main Street, which is part of Main Street that's, I'm sorry, not 5th Street, 2nd, or Northwest Tangent between Highway 20 and the police station. That block, a good portion of it, you go far enough north, you run into the new school, the university, medical school. But there's a huge chunk there. This is just a block off where Teen Challenges. You go up that street, it looks like that road hasn't been paved in 20 years. You got a railroad crossing there that's dilapidated, and they actually use it. So it's like, it's got to be functional, but you got homes there that are crumbling. I just think that we need to help those areas where the quote, poor folk live. We need to take care of our renters because they're our citizens, and that's another big area that it's just been left to fester. It's also a high crime rate. I read the weekly reports, and I'm sure the chief recognizes that neighborhood, and it's creeping further south. Those are two areas that I would very much encourage a little more attention. And the first being the infrastructure, the streets, the lighting, the water and sewer. The basic stuff, the stuff the government should be concerned about. The second is, if you have absentee owners, perhaps having a letter from the city saying, hey, please come take care of your buildings. Some of them haven't been paid in years. And I know we're getting, when I talk about that, we're talking dangerously close to interference with private properties. And I'm very strongly in favor of private property rights. And I don't like government mandates, but, a polite letter maybe from the chamber, or from the council, not saying you will, but how about please do. Some of these neighborhoods just need some sprucing up, some small things. So that's for the residential areas. The downtown area needs some help. I know it's been talked about for as long as I've lived here, and probably eons before. We got a major U.S. highway running through our town that we call Main Street. Okay, it's one way, going one way the other downtown, which is fine and dandy for moving people from Albany to Sweet Home and points beyond, but it's not very conducive to people to stop and shop. And that's how you get a revitalized downtown. One thing I would suggest we consider is taking the parking on one side of this main street, eliminate it, move the lane over, and take the parking on the side that's remaining, and instead of having it parallel park it, have it nose-in parking. Why? Because you can get almost 3 times as many cars in the same linear feet. I've been told it'll cost millions of dollars to do this by some people, but I just can't believe that. I'm sorry. I'm an accountant. I'm not an engineer. I give you that. So maybe I just don't understand the cost involved with repainting the stripes on the road. And yes, the people on either the left or the right side of the road is going to get upset because their side doesn't have the parking. But when they get 2.5 to 3 times as many customers able to park on that street, I think they'll be a little bit happier. So those are 3 areas, at least, that I believe we could help our city grow and become more revitalized and renewed. Did that give you, did I answer it properly? Did it give you enough?
Yep. Number 3?
As a city councilor, you sometimes have to make unpopular decisions. How will you handle those who criticize you or a decision you've made?
What? Make an unpopular decision? First, when you make a decision, and as a counselor, I don't make a decision, I make a vote, or recommendation, and I vote. I'm one of 6, 7 if we're really contentious, and I hope it's never the point where, personally, Paul, I hope you never have to vote. No offense, but I love it when it's 6-1, 5-2, heaven forbid, 7-0, because Paul goes, yeah! It's cool when you can agree, but sometimes you don't. The number one thing is, when you're casting your vote, listen to all the sides, as many perspectives as you can get, so you fully understand it. Number 2, understand the implications of those stakeholders. There's a difference. This is what we're doing. You have to understand what exactly you're voting on. Second is, what are the implications for those stakeholders, those people out there, whether it be the citizens, the policemen, the sheriff's office. There's a lot of stakeholders in the city that we impact. And number 3 is vote what you think is the best for the city. You have to weigh what is the best alternative. And then when you have to explain that to somebody, you say, look, we consider this and we believe and that this is the best. And tell them. Now, if the vote was, 4-3, because Paul did have to break it and you happen to be on the 4, I certainly wouldn't recommend gloating that you won. I'd say, it's really a tight vote and we think it's the best. Give the reasons. And acknowledge the person doesn't have to agree. They don't even have to accept he did the right thing, but, there's no reason to get nasty or degrade the people who didn't vote the same way, but you just try to explain it and you move on. You say, if you're consistently voting in a manner that you got citizens angry at you, you might want to reconsider what you're doing. Because we're here to represent our people, right? That's what it is. This is, we're a republic. Our job is to implement policies that implement as best we can under the law and the constraints of our budget what our citizens want. Okay? And if we're not doing that, we shouldn't be here. Having said that, it is tempered by the fact that you need to use your brain. Okay? You got to say, I'm going to give an example, and I hope I don't offend anybody here. We have a gazebo being built. It's just that way. Personally, I would have voted against that gazebo because it came, and I know there were funds available from outside sources, okay? So we're not talking about the money. I believe, personally, that it sent the wrong signal. People are losing their jobs, we're laying off city staff, and we're building a gazebo. What did you tell our citizens? You gotta know the implications of what you do. It's not just dollars. It's not just efficient government. Perception. We're leaders of people, not machines. I think that was a prime example. It's a beautiful, well, actually, it's not done, I don't think. It's going to be beautiful. I've seen the sketches, and I can't fault you on wanting to improve that Academy Square. It's wonderful, but timing is everything, and the message that's being sent. It's just like when we had the budget cuts this last time, 11% of our people had to walk. That's horrible. We sent an awful message. But I thank you, Gary, for your forthrightness and your honesty, and Paul, your great leadership in coming forward and saying, we screwed up, we fixed it. Didn't try to hide it. Now everybody knows. We screwed up, we fixed it. So that's part of responding to criticism or comments, is you be honest. Be willing to say, yeah, you know what, I screwed up. Or this is what we did, and it's the best way. And if someone's really adamant, there's a microphone right here. Come, berate us at the council meeting. If you don't get your satisfaction, there's an election cycle coming up. That's what elected officials do. They get elected or not, based on how happy they make their constituents. I hope that more often than not, people are pleased with my votes, but that's not what I'm primarily here for. That's the politician side, but I'm here to be here as a councilor, as a statesman, do what's right for the community. If you consistently put that forth first, I think you'll be okay. And some people aren't going to be happy with what you do. That's just the way it goes. But I think by and large, not only will you be happy, they'll be happy.
Okay.
I just think it's important to point out, are you going to do
I
the
would,
same
yeah.
thing? Okay.
I was just going to respond that the city did not pay for that gazebo at all.
I know.
That was the land from the city, and that is completely the Optimist Club, I believe it is. It was completely by donations.
I agree.
And so I think it's absolutely, and I know this is a little off of the interview, but I just wanted to clarify that, respond to the criticism, because it's really important that we did not buy that. That was something that we just offered the land, and they are building it on there as a service to our community. And I think it's actually a great addition.
And I agree with that. And having been here, I was here when it was approved, and knowing that it was outside money, that's what I said. I know it wasn't about the money, it was about the impression. And I don't know how many times each of you have had to tell people, we didn't spend the money. It was free. And maybe that's what should have been a really big part of the announcement that it's going to happen is, hey, these guys have volunteered to do it. We're partnering with them. They're going to pay it so that everybody knows we got a free gazebo. Then you would have gotten pats on the back instead of darts. So,
it was like our new change out here, the Rotary Square there, or I don't know if that's what it's called, but the little, where the market is, that was all done with donations.
Right.
It was done from the
That's
Rotary
cool.
Club, so it's, anyways. Question number 4, where are we at? Rebecca?
What do you see as the key elements in a productive relationship between the city council, city manager, and the mayor? You kind of touched a little bit on that, but what are the key elements that keep us working together in a good relationship?
That's a really good question. It's one I think we all need to really concentrate on and make sure that we're doing this. Number one is be honest. Honesty and clarity goes with that, but candor, which is honesty in action, is so important. Because honestly, if I'm working with you, I really don't care if you like what I'm saying, but I do care that you understand what it is, and that when you give me your opinion, your feedback, that I can understand where you're coming from. If you're not being candid with me, if you're hiding something, if you're not giving me full information, I learn to distrust you, and that breaks the relationship down. So honesty and candor, they go hand in hand. That is the number one way. If you're honest with people, you're candid with them, you build that trust. And after a period of time when you're working with somebody, you know that you're going to get the full answer. I don't say the right answer, but we all have opinions about what's the right answer, but at least you're going to get what is true, okay? And it could be, I mean, if you're honest with me, say, this is what I want, and that's why I'm doing it, as opposed to, I got to, that's cool. It's all right, we all have a right to our opinions and our viewpoints, and we're given authority to put some of those into place, but tell me that that's what it is. That's where it's come from. This is what I believe and this is what I want. But if you have a law back there, let's cut to the chase. I got to do it because the law says it. That ends a lot of the discussions. And we can just talk about how to implement this thing. So honesty and candor is the most important, and goes in a follow-on to that is communication. Do your best to make sure that everybody is informed. Everybody that has to be informed, that's the 7 members, the 6 councilors, the mayor, and the city manager, knows what's going on. If you get some information that you know needs to be shared, share it. Okay, if it's impacting an issue that the city's addressing, share it. Don't hide it. Don't, this old adage, knowledge is power. Well, let's give everybody a little piece of the power because we all need it. So that communication is critical to success as a team, and that's what we want to build here as a team. And it goes even beyond just the council, mayor, and manager here. It includes the chief here, chief of the fire department, department heads, the civic leaders. We need to, as best we can, keep those community leaders informed as well. And our governmental leaders, our agency heads, as best we can. Sometimes you got to keep things contained for legal reasons and practical reasons, like when you're negotiating. That's probably something you don't want to be just talking to Joe down to the tea house, but if you can, share it, because these folks want to know, and they want to help.
Okay. Last question, we have just a little over 7 minutes left. Wayne.
Ralph, if selected, what would your top 3 priorities be as a city councilor?
Top 3 priorities, I think I've already touched on those pretty close, but let me just reiterate. The number 1 is public safety. Chief, I'm going to try to get you as many cops as I can. I don't believe that, when I say this, please don't take it like I'm criticizing our force. I'm saying I don't think we do enough for public safety because I don't think you have enough people. I realize you got 4 new people on it, but I also see that the reported crime's going up. So I think you need a couple more. In particular, I think you need a couple motorcycle cops. So should I be selected? You all hear me talking about that from time to time. Second to that is we need to find a way to make our water rates, at the very least, stabilize. But I'd actually like to see a decrease in, particularly I have an idea about the fact that, some of you know this already, I have a well at my house. Okay, I dug it, had it dug, I shouldn't say I did it, the second summer we were here. I bought my house in 01, in 02, we dug a well because my water bill for July of 2001 was $157. Plus whatever the sewer was. At that time it was reasonable for the sewer. Okay, I was shocked. In Oregon, paid for water. Okay, and it's gone up. I now have a well, so I do not use city water. I pay $86 and some pennies every month for the right to flush my toilet into the sewer system. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, $2 and something cents is for the stormwater. That was another discussion. We need to fix that. I know that there are people, a significant number of people in the city that pay less than that because they're snowbirds. And our sewer rates are based upon your use during the winter. Okay, they annualize it. We need to throw that formula away. Okay, or revise it, because these folks who come and use our water, and they are using it, they get a free ride. Their sewer bill is down there pretty close to zero. Their water they pay, but why is somebody who leaves for 3 months in the winter paying less in the summer when they are here than I, who am here, and I'm not using the water at all? That base rate should apply to everybody. I believe you got some money that's should be brought in, and I feel sorry for the folks who are mostly older folks that are going to see their water bills go up if you implement that, but I think it's more fair. And I think anybody who actually looks at the system and says, oh, you know, I'm sorry, people use the sewer pretty much the same, unless you have a huge number of kids, but if you're going to have a base rate for people like me who do not use your water, you should apply it to everybody, and there should not be a reason for it to go below that, because I've been told I'm charged because this is the cost of providing that service. So that's the second area that I would really look at. And the third area would be the rest of the public works and infrastructures I talked about before, is particularly streets. I'm really big into paved streets and bringing that in. And if I may be so bold as to add in, revitalize the downtown area is the last area. We need to do what we can to bring in profitable businesses or help our people be profitable. And our downtown, one of the biggest issues is the fact that you can't park. You just can't. I mean, I had a business downtown, and it was a really small business, but I still had people say, you know, I came here yesterday, but I couldn't park within 3 blocks, you know, and they left. The businesses along Main Street need people to be able to stop. You can't stop if there's not a parking spot. So those are the 4 areas that I know you asked for 3, but you got a bonus. Okay. Questions?
We just have one more to see if you have any additional comments, questions for council. If you have anything else?
Boy, additional things. Well, you've all worked with me. I've been on the budget committee for 3 years, and prior to that I was pretty active, at least I believe I was active in getting to know you and giving you my opinions. Some good, some bad, but I asked for this opportunity to serve, and it is an opportunity to serve, and it'd be an honor to sit with you and help you work through the issues. There's a myriad of issues that we need to deal with, and I think I have some skills to help you. I am an accountant, CPA, so I can do numbers pretty good, and I think I'm plugged in, so hopefully you guys will agree that I'm the right one. So, thank you.
I have a follow-up question, if that's okay. Going back to number 5 and your priorities, I just wanted to ask you, how would you propose to improve the city's water system, as you stated in number 1, while at the same time reducing water rates?
How do you improve it without increasing our rates? Boy, isn't that the tough question.
Well, not without increasing, by reducing.
Right, even if my goal would be to actually reduce the rates. I think the first thing we need to really look at is our rate structure. Okay, because we can do that administratively and do it on Excel to figure out. You can plug in different scenarios, different rate structures, and do a modeling program to see what it would do. I don't know anybody who's going to disconnect their sewer because we charge a certain amount. That would be pretty drastic. But I think if you make the rate structure more fair, and thus I think it's going to be a substantial number of people, the rate will go down, but for a very significant number, the sewer rates will increase because it'll stabilize and be the same for everybody. With that money, that I believe it would be a net increase in revenues. And I could be totally wrong. I mean, one thing is I'd be more than happy, but I'm willing to admit when I'm off. And they say, you know, whoa, and the modeling will tell you that. How do you improve it? Number 1 is get that plant built. I read in the paper where they put it on hold because there's an issue with the city of Albany. I think we should revisit whether Albany should be owned in our canal. We should think long-term and say, you know what, it runs through our town, it provides our water, not theirs, maybe we should own it. Of course, we need to figure out how to pay $6.2 million that they expended, and they think that we need to help pay for. And I mean, that's a big issue, but I think we need to explore that, the fact that we have our water supply in another city's hands. Okay, so let's get the plant built. Consider transferring the canal back to City of Lebanon ownership. And then help our citizens do things that help reduce the demand on our system so it'll last longer. You need to prioritize improvements there. And we may not be able to do it, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It might be a 10, 15-year process, but do something. Do something every year. It's like when I was on the budget committee for the school. Now everybody's enjoying our new track and field over there. I was the one who started that, who got the funding for it the first year. Okay, you can throw your knives down, but we talked about it, say, this is really great, we need to do it, they're going to close the track down, and we'll have to lose all of our track and field programs. But I said, wait a minute, let's put some money aside now, and come back next year. And we did that. My second year on the budget committee, we set aside $100,000. My third year, finally, on the committee, we actually authorized another $100,000 and the provision of the rest of the money over a period of time. We managed. That's how you do it. If you've got an idea that it needs to be funded, and you don't got the money now, put a little bit of money. It's like the parks, if you may remember, not this year's, but the last year for the parks. I had to set aside a certain amount for putting the restrooms in. We talked about River Park, and I really wanted restrooms up here in Christopher Columbus, and I'm not sure why they plowed it, but put something aside and say, hey, citizens, we see this need. You've been asking for it. We can't do it yet, but here's something that says we're going to. The old adage, put your money where your mouth is. So start down the path, even if it's just one step. That's the best I can say at this point.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you. Any other questions? I apologize I had to leave so abruptly.
That's all right.
But I had a quick question. First of all, thank you for your service on the Budget Committee. Appreciate that. And I just had a quick question because I haven't ever had a chance to talk to you after. We had the Budget Committee and you voted on no on the budget, and I was curious as to why, if you would just explain that, because I had some people ask me.
Yes. I thought that was a question that was going to come up. I'm surprised it was wait to the end. The budget as presented was done very good. Gary did an outstanding job recovering from a fiasco. Okay. I agreed with 99.9% of the budget. There was one item on the budget that I wanted to amend. There was a parliamentary procedure issue. It was presented as, here's the budget, these are the changes we want to make. The motion was made to accept it with these adjustments. Once the vote went, yes, we accept it, it's done. So the parliamentary procedure prevented me from saying I wanted to remove the funding for the voters pamphlet. And I saw, you probably saw me say, what? Because the question I asked, I forgot how much it was, $1,100 or some thousands of dollars for this. I wanted to remove that. I saw a week later, you guys did it anyway. So that's why I didn't come back to the next council meeting when you guys were finalizing it and say, we need to do this because you did it. And I congratulate you and I thank you for that. That was it. It frustrated me, honestly, that we don't know enough about parliamentary procedure to really...
The short one. Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't know enough about parliamentary procedure to realize that once you voted on as how that motion was put forward, that we're done. Discussion was done. It didn't allow for further amendments. So the way it should have happened is it should have been introduced as proposed. Someone should, I moved to accept, and then someone moved to amend. Then you talk about all those generic, easy ones where push administrative, and okay, we can get rid of that. Okay, but since it was as amended, you're done, because that's the final vote. So, and that's why it really upset me. And it was like, what? Wait a minute, I wanted to pull that money. It's not a big piece of the pie, but I wanted that opportunity, and it just happened too quickly, and that's why.
Great.
So,
Appreciate that. Thank you again for your offer to serve, and we appreciate your time today.
thank you.
Thanks. No. Yeah. Now let's take a few minutes. Let's take 10 minutes.
I got
Let's see. I'll start with you this time, Floyd. Is that right?
What did it say?
Floyd?
Yeah.
I think you're up on this one, number one. I think. No, just when it comes up.
Okay.
I was just prepared.
Okay.
Didn't want to shock you.
I'm ready.
really always number one.
Let's
So
start
Rebecca,
with,
you're always number one.
I know, but I hate question number two.
all right, you be number one, and we'll go right like this, and he'll...
No.
I'm just thinking out of the box. Jason told me to think outside of the box.
Welcome, Ted.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming in. Would you like to give a little opening statement? Tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Ted Salmons, originally from Kentucky. I did about 28 years in the Navy, moved here about 10 years ago. My wife's from Oregon. I have no relatives here other than in-laws. But I've been, like I said, I've been here for 10 years. Had some friends talk about this position that opened up and says, well, you're always, joking about city government, good and bad. They said, here's your chance to do something about it. I said, well, and that's good. And they also said, well, this would be a good opportunity to get involved and see if you like it, because it's a 2-year term. If it doesn't work out, no one is burdened with you for the long term. And if you do like it, well, then you can run for re-election in a couple of years. And I said, well, it's time to put my money where my mouth is. When like I says, I complain in private and I praise in public, but that's just the way it works.
Very good. Okay, question number one, Floyd.
Robert, would you speak right into the microphone?
Okay.
Yeah, real close. Thank you.
What do you perceive to be the 3 most important concerns facing Lebanon?
Well, 3 important ones are getting jobs into the city, maintaining our education at a current or better level, hopefully even better level, and maintaining what I think is a fairly secure public safety environment. And employment will cure some of that, because we all know that, lack of employment does contribute some to crime. Lack of education makes people's marketable skills less than favorable, and so they all sort of revolve around each other, All 3 of them, any one of those affect the other 2.
Can you elaborate on public safety at all?
Public safety, living within our budget, having a face on the street, well, I hate to use the term, the patrols are good, but getting the residents involved. Police force is good, but any police force is reactive, They can't be everywhere at the same time. But a good police force with good liaison to city residents, I don't think we need to talk everyone likes the neighborhood watch thing, but sometimes the neighborhood watch gets sort of a bad reputation of, we're spying on our neighbors and stuff. It says, no, we're not. We're just, I use it as the, just doesn't look right syndrome. If something doesn't look right, well, let someone know about it. But because they say, well, that's just normal. So, well, that's not normal here, in this neighborhood. I'm not used to having this same guy, do a crawl through my cul-de-sac, 4 times in 1 week. And it says, well, I don't have to stop the guy and confront him, because that's just stupid, but there's nothing wrong with scribbling down a license plate, because just like I said, be proactive with your law enforcement people. Don't leave it all to them, because, they can't see or be everywhere at the same time.
Okay, number 2. Bob?
What areas of Lebanon do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization? And then the second part is, what do you think would be an appropriate approach for the city?
Well, the city can, the areas out around the airport is a good area. And of course, whenever you do that, a lot of people say, well, you're trading farmland for industry. Unfortunately, if it's not wetland, it's going to be farmland in this part of the country if it's nothing else other than grass seed or raising sheep. Not that I have anything against grass seed or raising sheep, but anywhere you're going to put in areas, a construction center or a industrial park, you're going to have to, you're going to fight somebody somewhere to get it into their land. But there's a lot of light industry, I think, that could be wooed, could be recruited. Of course, that usually involves the city and the county working in liaison. I don't know how much of a liaison we have between the city and the county in making offers, and I use the term recruiting, companies to come to this area. And that usually involves, in this era, some form of tax credits or tax breaks, and that's a good thing, but you also have to have an educated workforce here for those people to come here. This says, the old bit of, well, if you build it, they will come. I says, well, you can build it, but you got to have someone to staff it. And so that goes along with, keeping our education up to where it is, working with Lynn Benton, having them not direct, but develop courses that are more marketable. I couldn't name 5 of those right away. It says we have a healthcare area here that's growing. But you can't base everything on healthcare. But I think we've got a pretty good balance. But we could use more light industry that pays a good wage, that pays more than minimum, and gets people gainfully employed, so that you don't have an entire generation of high school students that graduate, and then 50% of them, if they want to if they seriously want to join the workforce, they have to go somewhere else to do it. And so you're losing. The best and the brightest is a term from the 60s, but the best and the brightest ones are the ones that will move, usually, to find a better job, and those are the ones we really want to keep here.
Good. Number 3, Jason.
As a city councilor, you sometimes have to make unpopular decisions. How would you handle those who would criticize you or the decisions that you make?
Well, everyone reacts to criticism in different ways, Criticism is merely someone else's opinion about what you did wrong. If you can back up your decision with facts, no matter what you do, you're never, ever going to satisfy everybody. You have to let that roll off your back. If you go home at night, at the end of the day, you know you made the best decision. You believe you made the best decision based on the information you had at the time. And you can't let that beat you to death. But you also need to be willing, if everyone has made decisions in their life and a period of time later says, well, if I had only known, but be ready to take ownership of that and said, well, if we had known this at the time, we probably wouldn't have gone in that direction. But you can't rewrite history. The trick is, and it's not a trick, is just to make the best decision fiscally and personally. You can't just say everything's based on dollars and cents. People can't be measured in dollars and cents. But you have to make the best decision based on the information you have at the time, and you're never going to have all the information.
What do you see as the key elements in a productive relationship between the city manager, the mayor, and city council? What are the main key elements in that?
Well, we have city council, which are responsible primarily to the people in our ward first and to the city second. The mayor, that is, we are responsible to him in many decisions. A city manager, which is not an elected position, who is responsible to the council as a whole. But to be able to sit down, have disagreements, but at the end of the day, we disagreed. Don't become a political one-item. Well, if you don't agree with this one thing, I can never agree with anything you do. People are going to disagree on how to do everything. People will disagree whether you roll the toilet paper over the top or off the bottom, but that's nothing to worry about and go home at the end of the day, But still be able to go down
when you're having private discussions, make sure they stay private. Make sure, I know when you have your executive sessions, what is said in here stays in here. That's utterly important because that gives you the ability to have a free discussion, and hopefully at the end of the day, well, everyone's going to get their feelings hurt a little bit every now and then. That's just a fact of life. But don't let that rule your life. To be able that, if you and I had just a knockdown, drag out in here, hopefully at the end of the day, we can, go get a soda somewhere and still, say, okay, we won't discuss what happened in the sessions, but, that's just, we disagreed on that subject this time. Next week, hopefully, we'll agree on something, or next month.
We have Floyd, who's almost always wrong, and a lot of people don't know that, so...
Is that something that happened in the executive session I really shouldn't have heard?
No, everyone can know that.
Everyone
I
knew
just want
about
that
it?
on the
Okay,
record.
okay.
I'm telling as many people as possible.
Oh, okay, then, this is...
Okay.
But that's sort of what I meant, It says, okay, he probably thinks you're wrong sometimes, too.
Not true.
It may not be true, but, I always say that there are at least, at a minimum, two sides to each story. And somewhere in the middle is the truth. So, okay, you're never right, you're never wrong, he's never right. Somewhere in the middle, I think, is the truth.
Number 5, Rebecca? I'm sorry. Wayne. You guys have it better than I do. Thank you.
If selected, what would be your top 3 priorities if selected to be a councilor for the city?
Well, let the people in my ward know who I am. That steps into the second one, which would be to have good communications with them. You can't represent your ward if you don't know what their wants, needs, and desires are, and to be able to address those and be able to get answers back to them. And basically, all 3 reasons would really come around communications, to be able to get with them, to know what they want, and sometimes, telling the people you represent that they're not going to get what they want because it doesn't make sense, it doesn't fiscally make sense, but it's not, or it's not the best thing to do for the city as a whole. Ward 1 residents would probably love the airport to shut down because they don't like the noise. The other 2 wards sort of like having an airport here in town. So those are the kind of things that you would have to address, and knowing that, 10% of the issues at least 10% of the issues you're ever going to be confronted with are ones that you would just like to shrug off, but you have to at least give them the consideration and the respect they deserve and get back to them with an answer, whether it's yes, no, or not now.
So number 1's let people know who you are. Number 2 is meet with people. And what was number 3?
Well, have a good method of
Communications?
communication.
Okay.
Social media is good. It's not the cure to everything because there's a lot of people out there that don't use social media, that don't use computers, and how I would pull that one off right now, I don't exactly know. Because the big thing is just let them know who you are, because I think a lot of people in this town choose, or by omission or commission, don't know who their representatives are. And sadly, some of that was today, the city wasn't going to do a whole lot of business today, judging by the agenda. I went online, I read the agenda. They weren't going to do a lot of city business today, other than this, which I think is pretty important, but they were conspicuous by their absence in the empty chairs behind me. You would hope that the chairs are full all the time, and not just with the 7 regulars that some cities seem to end up with. Most of us have been there, George, Martha, and Charlie, who come for the coffee, and to shoot negative comments at everything that's brought up, but, something to stir up a little more public interest in the meetings. Hopefully this was not the norm.
It kind of is, in most
well,
cases, unfortunately.
Hope
Unless there's
springs,
big
hope
issues.
springs eternal.
Yeah, yes, we still do. Okay, do you have any additional comments or questions from us?
No, I appreciate the consideration. I like to think I would do a good job. Some people, when I say people, my friends, say, well, you've never done anything like this before. I says, well, that means I also don't have any preconceived notions on what's right or wrong. I can learn from everyone, you know. I says, and most people especially learn from their mistakes if they're willing to, you know.
We all had our first day.
We all have our first day, you know. I've had a lot of first days. You know? In the military, every time you moved, you had a lot of first days, you know.
I've been doing this a long time, and I still don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I usually have a rule is until you get into a position like this, and do any job, you don't know what you don't know.
That's very true.
We know.
Down back there.
We disagree with you.
Oh, whatever.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ted, very much. I appreciate your time, appreciate you even considering serving the community, and it was really neat to see 5 candidates, and I appreciate you coming.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I was so proud of you.
See?
You're growing
Not just
right
a pretty
up.
face.
I'm not just another what?
I said, you have the same question every time, because he's number 3 no matter which way we go. And every time you have to read it. And this time, you just...
Maybe I should make hand gestures as you point out Gary over here and Paul.
Communication.
I did not do that.
Visual and audio, I got it. And Floyd's always.
Hey, Floyd, you feel like you're getting picked on today?
What do I know? I'm always wrong.
How do you feel about it? You're wrong. I don't know why Floyd you're just like my target today.
Hey,
It's good.
that's okay.
Rub shoulders.
I've had one of those kind of weeks. This is nothing.
This is easy compared to the rest of us.
How many candidates have filed for city council?
3. They're all in this room.
Okay.
The mayor,
Everybody
Bob,
ready?
and Floyd.
For last candidate,
You ready?
already.
Nobody outside of the council members have filed, right? I don't know if she understood that. I think she meant.
She said only 3 have filed, and they're all in this room.
You make a lot of noise back there,
A little
Bob.
party.
Yeah, we've been doing all right. You want an evaluation on the other 4 guys?
One of them's in my district.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Off the top, before we get started, I wanted to ask you a question on your application. You've got the home address listed as 1620 Airway Road?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Is that where you're living?
Yes. That's my residence.
That's your
I mean,
residence?
That's where I get all my mail and stuff.
Okay.
How's it?
Our city charter, I just wanted to read you our city charter because I'm a little concerned. It does say that the person has resided in the city continuously during the 6 months immediately preceding the election or appointment. And resided to me kind of makes me think you're actually living there. Are you actually living at that address?
I stay there quite a bit. I don't live there 100% of the time, but it's where I get all my mail, and the same deal happened with Barry, because he and I own that building together.
Right.
And I own the hangar.
Barry actually lived in a different residence when he applied for the position, then after that changed.
No, but not before he was elected.
Well, I'm not familiar exactly with the dates,
Because
but...
I remember when that came
I'm
up.
not trying to argue with you, it's just I have a concern that to me a residence means you're actually living in the city, not just staying there once in a while. Because, I mean, all of us, I mean, it's where you lay your head, it's where you wake up every day.
Well, I remember when Scott Smith was running for mayor. He had the same, because he lived next to me up on Ty Valley. And he had a apartment downtown here.
And I didn't agree with that then either.
Right, I had a lot of people that were really upset with that.
Yes, they were very unhappy with that.
And because, I mean, part of the, I would just reiterate, part of the nice thing about having people representing wards is that you are there all the time, or a substantial amount, and those things affect where you lay your head at night.
Well, the only property I own in Oregon is a cabinet shop and a hangar. That's the only thing I own in the state.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I appreciate your, the contributions you give into our community, and I know you've got a great background, but I just don't feel comfortable that you're a resident of the city. I don't think that's fair. So.
Well, that's a decision, you folks.
I would like to hear from the council and see if there's agreement or disagreement with that.
That's been my residence as far as voting for 25 years. I've had that ever since I've been in Oregon. And
Are you registered to vote at that address?
yes, sir, continuously.
Okay.
I've had the same issue brought to me previously about Councilor Scott. The question was, does he actually live in the city? And I didn't have an answer for that at the time. But
Well, I want to be
I would
honest
agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that living means residing, means that's my home. And if you leave and you drive home to a different place, if your wife or your spouse lives at a different place and you just happen to spend a lot of time at one address, to me, that's not residing. Now, I don't know if that's a legal interpretation of the charter or not, but to me, it's where do you eat your meals, where do you sleep at night, that's where you reside. That's how each one of us resides within our ward. So I think that's the question. And we don't want to dance around the issue, but we just would like an answer, I think, of that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be as honest as I know how to be with you, but that's the situation. I stay out there sometime at night.
Okay.
Because, in fact, I was gone 2 weeks ago, and they broke in and stole about several $1,000s worth of tools and wire, stripped the blame wire, so I can't even get, I got temporary power run over from my hangar now, so I got lights. But that's the situation.
Okay. It's in our charter. I feel that resides is living there. I'd like to hear, Bob, how do you feel?
Yeah, I am uncomfortable with this situation myself. I know that Scott Simpson was another problem area that was a topic all over town all the time. He was on the council and as the mayor, where does he live, And so I'm not comfortable with this at all.
Okay.
Well, the reason that I assumed this was okay was the situation that happened with Barry. He applied for the position, and then he and his wife split up. She kicked him out. That was where he was staying. And I know that the city attorney looked at it. It was an issue before the vote was taken. And I don't remember, I wasn't involved with it that much detail. So I don't know how that got resolved, but somehow they assumed it was okay.
Yeah, and I think that was mainly because he was living there at the time. From what I know, is he was actually staying there because of being kicked out of his home, so.
Yeah. Well, they said you could have a caretaker, I think the words they used, living there in a commercial building.
Yeah, I don't want to waste your time in interviewing you because I just have a problem with that you're not living in the city, so. Wayne, what do you think?
No, I think the charter's pretty clear about, at least my interpretation of it, and the candidate or those running for the position in a ward must reside there. That's how I understand it. And, when Barry ran, he was living there. But we've had issues with other councilors and mayors over the years that the citizens were not pleased about. I just don't want to, I don't think we need to bring that subject back again by being wrong.
I agree.
By bypassing the charter.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any comments, Floyd?
Well, I think it's probably pretty similar. I've heard a lot feedback from that also, and I think I'd also like to say there are some incredibly great people that live just out of the city limits, that what I would call residing, that I'd love to tap into to help this community. But I think our charter is pretty explicit.
Okay. So at this point, then, we won't be able to accept your application. But again, you've been a great citizen, and we
Yes.
appreciate your business that you had in town and your experience, and you're an awesome guy, and so is Barry. And we miss him on the council, too.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you stepping up, too.
Yes.
Maybe I'll buy a house someplace that's definitely...
Do that.
That'd be good for our economy, too.
We would welcome you. I'm serious. I would welcome you in this group. You would be a great addition.
Your experience would be very
Yes.
helpful on council.
Yes.
I've had a lot of experience. I didn't even list most of it, but I've
Yeah.
with other cities.
Yeah.
Orlando, Florida.
I would look forward to that. I really would.
Okay, thank you.
Make that happen.
Thank you, Bob. Not yet, we're gonna... Okay, at this point, if you want to make sure all your sheets are tallied up. Linda's got a real nice interview score sheet here, this one with the blue on it, teal, whatever color that is. And and it's got our names, so you can put your numbers up there across the different candidates. And then we can turn those into Linda, and then Linda can tally those for us. Is that kind of what you wanted to do, Linda? Okay. This is the exciting part on YouTube.
This, candidate assessment profile scores for
That was if we ran into something where there was kind of a tie or real close, we could do some other
I'm
things.
omitting
like if they
that
had-
right now.
Yeah, just
doing
worry
it-
about that first part up at the top.
And not the ranking, because I have a rank in my head.
Yeah, if you.
Yeah, you can do the ranking.
We're finished with the
Okay.
Sure.
interviews, we need the rankings.
Okay.
And then the scores.
Yeah.
And if it
The
comes-
middle part, we don't really need to use, right?
Not unless you guys are really,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Kind of like a tiebreaker.
and that might.
When we're fighting and I am right and Floyd's wrong, and I can like substantiate that.
We probably just
I'm
freaked
with
out all the
that.
candidates saying that Bob's not it.
The top part is really the only.
Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Oh,
No,
There is no.
you're wrong. No, I can see you're wrong.
You want us to put it in this sheet?
Yes, please.
Leave your pencil. Leave your pencil. Say.
We're on camera, aren't we?
We are. If you want to ask a question, or we can discuss it.
Turn yours in already?
Pass it down to Linda for me.
Oh, you forgot one.
Pretty good so far. I was thinking 3.
You know, we got a lot of fighting to do.
I'll take you down in a sec.
Aziz.
And I know she's busy, but I want to thank Linda for helping us with preparing all the information and our sheets and putting this all together. Yes. It was very helpful. I like the sheets with, the write on each page. It was very nice for questions.
I don't quite understand this, rest of this.
Don't worry about the middle, Bob. Just
Okay.
do the ranking on the bottom of your choices of
Okay.
whether it's numbers or not, just whatever you think is who's first, second, third.
Oh, okay, so we go, all
Yeah,
right.
forget the middle. That was just in case we had a tie or real
Okay,
close.
so we'll rate who we got.
I need you to do the bottom portion. Is that what you
I don't have a vote, but I agree with you.
Hey, Gary.
Really?
Agreed?
He wanted my dad to. Thank you.
We both agree on the scores. We had to make sure they were right.
Alrighty.
So I now know that Gary knows how to calculate.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'll just go ahead and read the scores for everybody, and then we can discuss that and see if there's any issues. It looks like first is Robert Furlow with 175, Dean Barnes, 91, Ralph Gaston, 125, and Theodore Salmons, 147. So the top candidate was Robert Furlow, and second would be Theodore Salmons. Any discussion, or?
Second.
Ted Salmons, Theodore Salmons?
Yeah.
Okay. That was pretty much kind of the way I was thinking too, but any comments or disagreement with that?
I like both 1 and 2. And
Yeah.
I like the 2 a little more than 1, but
Okay.
I'm okay with 1 as well.
We had really good candidates.
We did,
I am.
very good. The answers were great. It was really good.
I know, I was extremely pleasantly surprised with, we could have had nobody, and yet we had really great.
That was nice. It wasn't like
loved them all.
scraping the bottom of the barrel. It was really top candidates.
Yeah, I loved them. I loved a little bit about all of
It
them.
was Ward 1.
Whatever.
Bye, Bob. Thank you again. Okay, so at this,
Have him come in?
what's that?
Are you ready to have him come in, or?
Do we want to vote on it first, or do we want to have them in here while we vote? I guess it doesn't really make a difference. think we should probably vote on it first, and then we can bring them in and let them know. Or what would you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I entertain a motion to choose a candidate to fill Ward 1.
I move to vote
Robert Furlow.
Robert Furlow in as replacement for Barry Scott, Ward 1.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to vote Robert Furlow to replace Barry Scott in Ward 1 as city councilor for the remainder of that term. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Robert Furlow is our new Ward 1 councilor. Let's bring him in.
Sounds like they're having a party back there.
I know, they are.
Very good.
Bob went back there, and he was back there for another 15, 20 minutes.
Down about 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Floyd and I both remember it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you again, all of you, for applying and offering to serve the community. The council voted, and we have voted in Robert Furlow as the next city councilor for Ward 1. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And we commented on it, and you guys couldn't hear that, but it was really nice to have such a top-notch group of people to choose from, and it wasn't like we were scraping from the bottom of the barrel. We had the top, the cream of the crop. So we really appreciate it. To have so many people coming in for a council position like that was really awesome. Thank you very much, all of you.
All of you. It was,
Yes.
what a pleasure to have all of you that apply. It really was.
And don't forget, there's an election coming up, so if you're still interested in Ward 1, or, no, it wouldn't be, yeah, Ward 1, yeah. You still got Ward 1 coming. That's right. Unless we want to move. That's right. No. All right. And if you guys want to leave or stay around, we just have a couple more little things that we're going to do, and that's it. But congratulations, Robert. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up on the agenda will be items from council. And anybody have anything they'd like to talk about? Not too much? Okay. Public comments. We have another opportunity for any citizens to comment on any city business. All right. And any items from the press? Any questions? All right. You guys get this great opportunity and you're so quiet.
Gosh.
Okay. The executive session has been removed. And that's it at this point. Then we will adjourn the meeting and get some pictures back there.